Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Fact, Opinion, Truth. I want to thank everyone who took the time to watch out last week's video. Over 70 views was way above my expectations for my first attempt at creating this space. And although there were no comments, I can completely understand how difficult it can be to start a discussion that this channel intends. This week, I want to talk about fear. More specifically, the fear of change. Change forces you to question your reality. It's the why and the how where fear begins. For example, no matter your opinion on COVID 19, the fact remains that our current reality is different from our prior reality. And this is impactful. It affects people in different ways. And change can be scary, even if it's in a positive light, like starting a new job or having a child. It brings out a vulnerability that no one likes to talk about. There's a couple reasons and topics and categories that fear really plays an integral part with change, a change to your routine. COVID shut everything down. People now have to wear masks. People don't want to wear masks. People want to go places. It's a change in their daily lives and removing a distraction of, your typical day to day. And that's scary. Change in relevancy. People want to be relevant, especially in the age of social media. How many likes, how many comments, how many subscribers, pat on the back or a virtual hug every time that those interactions happen. And to try to keep relevant is much harder than becoming relevant initially. There's a fear of missing out. You want to be friends and you want to have a social network and you want to be the go-to and you want to have people that depend on you and you want to be a part of something. Losing money or a source of income along with power are my final two. Losing money and power depends on your status, which we'll get into a little later. But what we're seeing now in our day-to-day as far as, let's say, the Epstein case or having small businesses are closed, if you look at Epstein, just a general sense what power and money can do to this country and has done to this country, it's disgusting. But to think that that's where it starts and ends is false. And I think that's why the distractions are so welcome, because it's very difficult for us as Americans who have been so entitled for the past 30 years. It's difficult to think that everything that you've been taught is false. And power, of course, is even more dangerous than money. It can always be taken away. So fear of power and losing money and fear of missing out, change in relevancy, a change to your routine, these all are an integral part of what makes us tick, and trying to face any loss or gain of any of these hits home. So changes of all of these things are happening every day, right? America, we're stuck in this state of entitlement. It's a false reality where we think the world owes us something for existing. And anyone, especially born into the age of the internet, doesn't really understand what it was like for prior generations. We didn't have a World War I or World War II or a Great Depression. Yes, we did have, detrimental things that happened to us as a country and to people within our country, but it's not the same as being, let's say, drafted. Even though it still hurts, it's not something that kids today can empathize with. In addition to entitlement, we've also lost our patience. The internet and rapid expanse of technology has made immediate gratification front and center. We want what we want, and we want it now. So if you look how America is handling or not handling COVID, wherever your opinion lies, you have to remember, even in a general sense, virology, epidemiology, and other infectious disease specialists have a methodology in which they need to follow to find answers. And America isn't and wasn't willing to just give up their entitled lives to just give anyone a moment to just figure out what's going on for real, that why and that how. We gave a couple weeks in a general sense up here in the Northeast, but even then, there was a ticking time bomb for us. There is only a certain amount of time that we will be complacent, and then we start to rebel because those things of power and money and relevancy start to take effect. America is wonderful. I love being an American, and I'm proud, and I'm hoping to do this to help us remember where we came from. The answers to COVID really is we don't know. We keep asking these questions of masks. Are they relevant? Do they do something? They don't do something. You can't tell me what to do. But at the end of the day, we really don't know. It's only 4 or 5 months old, is this virus, here in America anyway. You can't learn a lot about a virus, or a vaccine for that matter, in that short of time. We're rushing to have this vaccine pushed out because that's what the government is telling us that we need to get back to this quote unquote normalcy. So let's say you rush out and you get this vaccine. I'm not against vaccines in a general sense. Again, I don't have children, so it doesn't have to be in the forefront of my mind. And I feel very deeply for those of you who have to make those decisions because I know that they are difficult. But let's say you go and you get this first round of a vaccine. There is no way for anyone to know what those long-term consequences are for that. Could there be no consequences? Sure, that's a possibility. But there could also be detrimental consequences for rushing something so important and so vital. And it's the same that goes for modern medicine in general. I like balance, so I'm not an extremist on either side, whether it's Western medicine or holistic medicine. I like a mix of both. But there's a truth, especially take something as widely used as, let's say, birth control, that it didn't start that long ago. It's a recent invention. We don't really know what those consequences are. You can take a look at infertility is a huge impact to families these days. And we don't know where that came from. Is it possible that these birth control pills have been shoved down our throats since we were 17 years old? Because apparently that's our responsibility. We don't know what that's done to us. And we don't know what it's going to do to future generations. Again, it's not a right or wrong answer. It's just the question. You have to ask the questions. So if you listen to, go back to COVID, to Dr. Fauci, in order to understand why his wish list is to, shut down the country in the interest of the people, it's due to his experiences. And that's what we're talking about on this channel, people's truth, people's opinions, what's fact. His truth, based on his experiences and decades of research and frontline work, he understands that there is and can be one virus that can literally take out the world that we know it. This is his truth based on his reality. However, I still encourage you to ask the question why and how. Taking things at face value can be blinding and misguided. We're in a country that is manipulative and misguided by design. And we're seeing that come to light now. This is a journey, and we want to feel power and be powerful. And that's why we can expect, or we do expect, so much when we understand so little. The news can only be taken with a grain of salt, used as a baseline to pique your curiosity to learn more about what's going on in the world. Because news is driven by emotional response. It's the only way people will watch it and keep watching. And fear is the most powerful response. Is COVID a real disease? Absolutely. Have people died because of this? Yes. Has the media and the government been honest about the details around, let's say, data reporting, the why and the how? It's highly unlikely. And we will probably never know. Each person in power does have their own agenda. It's human nature. We're born with instincts around survival, which keeps us selfish through fear. We're so worried about our country changing that our fears consume us to protect what we currently have, even if it's misguided based on our own individual truths. People actually fear other cultures and races, thinking that it will somehow impair our daily routines, our money, and our power. But we're not in power, and we never really were. We work 50 to 60 hours a week, some even more, some 3 jobs trying to make our outlandish rent and make sure food is on the table, or even worse, you have a great paying job and you spend all your money on irrelevant material things that show status. It seems to be the only thing that matters to people these days is labels. We care so much about what everyone thinks about us as an individual that we forget what it's supposed to be like to be an American. Like being in quarantine, it makes me realize what I used to do when I go out in public that I'm actually not doing for me, but doing for the people that I see outside. I haven't done makeup in 5 months. It's been wonderful, which made me realize that I wasn't doing makeup because I like to wear makeup. I was doing my makeup because it it easier for people to look in my direction, less likely to be judged because I can cover up my insecurities. I don't have those insecurities anymore because I'm at home. I'm in my safe place. We're supposed to be the land of the free, right? But we're not free. It's an illusion. We work every day just trying to survive and not live. Are we free compared to other countries? Absolutely. But we are not free in the sense that we think we are as Americans. In the hopes that one day, we'll retire and we'll have some great relaxing life after 65. Well, 65 is actually not even the age anymore. For anyone who's gotten their Social Security statement, it's 72 and a half if you want all your benefits. It's a future that no longer exists, and we need to evolve as a country. We need to open our minds to the possibility that we are not always right, and it's okay to admit when you are wrong. Just learn from that experience. Take ownership. It's empowering, and it helps you grow, and it will help us grow. We've done this before. It's not something new. It wasn't that long ago where, witches were on trial and killed, where torture was performed for menial offenses of free will. Women had no voice, and the African American community was told that they were less and they were treated as such. We overcame these mistakes and we became a better country. It's time to realize the mistakes that we are making right now and do something about it. But not with hate and fear, but with a growing curiosity of what is really out in the world. There's so much human culture that we have closed ourselves off to in the fear that our traditions will be taken from us. We need to evolve and overcome the distractions that are presented to us every single day. It's so easy to sit on the couch and get lost binge watching favorite TV shows. It removes me from this reality, so it's so hard to understand. Instead, I choose to try to use my curiosity for good. And for the first time in my life, I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable here with you. Everyone has their own story, and people are so interesting and kind and loving if we can just think for ourselves and have a friendly conversation without judgment. Look at our education system. Our teachers are some of the strongest people out there, and with the hardest job of them all. Becoming a teacher now, you don't even get the chance to actually teach. They have to follow a curriculum and teach one way for an entire class, sticking to their lesson plan that has to be approved and criticized for anything that doesn't fall within approved topics. That's not education. That's a form of brainwashing. A read, repeat what you learned. Read, repeat what you learned. There's no space for questions or curiosity. There's no alternate way of learning, and if you don't succeed in the manner in which you're taught, you're labeled as a bad student, which sets a tone for the rest of your life. I was a terrible student from second grade straight through high school, and it had nothing to do with my ability. I was bored and I didn't see the point. The point was that I needed to play the game in order to get ahead in life, which at that time I didn't know it existed. But if you fast forward to present day, for those of you who care to know, now I have a bachelor's in business, a master's in business, a master's in organizational development and change, and I'm on my third master's for analytics. But just to be clear, I didn't learn anything from my education. All I learned was how to go to school and how to play that game. But it came with a cost of $150,000 in student loan debt. But I needed to play the game to make sure that I could have this life that I thought was so important to live. I had a goal of getting, into a corporate job and having a cushy corner office. And I'm able to obtain that goal, minus the corner office. But everything I learned was learned in life, interacting with people, watching and listening to my surroundings, and learning that there was so much more to the world than I initially thought, that my reality was not everyone's reality. And this is where I realized I should no longer fear change, but I should welcome it. It means evolving into a better person as long as it comes from a place of love and not hate and not fear. If you still think you're in control and free in your life, it's nearly impossible. We may be free to make choices as life presents them, but they all have consequences, and that's what we've forgotten. Entitlement comes with a price, which is why we are in the type of world we are today. So I challenge you to face your fears, to ask the questions why and how, to really turn off the distractions and listen to some voice in your head that we all have, and really try to not only give yourself a better life, but also to the person next to you. Thanks for joining this week, and we'll see you next week. have a wonderful weekend.